All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a really powerful philosophical movement that basically championed your everyday, gut feeling experience against a rising tide of, well, some pretty serious skepticism. This is the story of Scottish realism, or you could call it the philosophy of common sense. So, let's just dive right in with a question that, on the surface, probably sounds a little ridiculous, right? But for philosophers back in the 18th century, this was no joke. It was a genuine crisis that was shaking the very foundations of what we thought we could know. You see, you had these really influential thinkers, guys like John Locke, who argued that we're always one step removed from reality. The thing we're immediately aware of isn't the world itself, but the ideas of the world floating around in our minds. It's like we're stuck behind this veil of perception, looking at pictures of reality instead of the real thing. And then the philosopher David Hume comes along and takes this theory of ideas to its logical and honestly pretty unsettling conclusion. I mean, if we're all trapped behind this veil, how can we be sure of anything? All of our core beliefs, that there's a stable world out there, that one thing causes another, even that you are the same you from one moment to the next, all of it gets thrown into doubt. Philosophy kind of hit a skeptical dead end. But then, a Scottish philosopher, Thomas Reid, who was actually in the same circle as Hume in Edinburgh, he basically decided enough was enough. He looked at this complicated philosophical trap and said, you know what? The problem isn't with reality. The problem is with the theory. He called it what he thought it was, pure fiction. So, Reid kicks off what we now call the Scottish realist movement, and his big move was to argue that philosophy had just gone way off track by abandoning the one thing that grounds all of us, our common sense. You know, the beliefs that every normal person holds without needing a complex philosophical argument. And Reid's point was just beautifully simple. He said this whole theory of ideas completely falsifies our most basic everyday experiences. Think about it. We don't perceive the idea of a rose's scent. We smell the actual scented rose. The theory just doesn't line up with how we actually live in and experience the world. Okay, so this is the crucial point. If we're not just perceiving our own ideas, then what in the world are we doing? Well, Reid proposed a pretty radical alternative, and in doing so, he built a whole new model of how we connect with reality. And this slide just nails the difference perfectly. Reid argued for what he called a presentational view. Objects aren't represented to us by some middleman idea. Nope, they are directly presented to our consciousness. There is no veil. We have a direct line to physical objects. And this theory has a name. It's called direct realism. Its whole goal, really, was to just tear down that philosophical veil of perception and put us back in direct, confident contact with the world as it actually is. So for Reid, this idea of realism affirmed two fundamental common sense principles. First, the world is out there, existing on its own, whether we're looking at it or not. And second, we are totally capable of knowing that world truthfully. It's out there, and yeah, we can actually get to it. So how can we be so sure about this direct connection? Well, Reid argued that our minds are not blank slates just waiting for information. He believed we're actually built with certain foundational beliefs that we don't have to learn or prove. They arise naturally. He called these natural beliefs. And it's interesting because even Hume acknowledged that we have these tendencies, these gut feelings. But Reid gave them a much stronger justification. He basically said God made our minds this way. Our natural mental wiring is designed to match up with reality, so we can actually trust these spontaneous beliefs. And these aren't just minor beliefs. These are the big ones. They're not conclusions we arrive at through some complicated proof. They're the starting points, the very foundations that all our other reasoning is built on. To doubt them, for Reid, is like sawing off the branch you're sitting on. And Reid, well, he didn't pull any punches. For him, a philosopher who genuinely doubted these core natural beliefs didn't have a sophisticated argument. They had a psychological problem. He thought their natural mental functions were simply misfiring. Now, this whole philosophical project wasn't just some abstract theory about how we see things. It had huge, real-world consequences, providing a powerful defense for some of our most important ideas about ourselves, our freedom to choose, and our ability to live a moral life. See, unlike Hume, who kind of saw human actions as just another link in a deterministic chain of events, Reid argued that we have a special kind of causal power. He called it agency. We all have this direct, undeniable awareness of our own power to start things, to initiate events, to make things happen in the world. This table really lays out the difference. For Hume, freedom just means you can act on whatever your strongest desire happens to be. But for Reid, true freedom is much deeper. It's the ability to actually choose which motive you're going to act on. We aren't just puppets of our desires. We are the real authors of our choices. And once you have that solid foundation of human freedom and natural belief, Reid argues that morality isn't just a subjective feeling, like Hume thought. It becomes a real science, a science based on intuitive, self-evident first principles that are just written into our very nature. So the crucial takeaway here is that Scottish realism was this powerful rebellion against philosophical theories getting a little too clever for their own good. It was this huge attempt to restore our confidence in our connection to the world by grounding everything in the common sense beliefs we all live by every single day, which, of course, leaves us with a final, pretty provocative question to think about. When is common sense a better guide than philosophy?